that people that have nothing, like, still, like, have something to give. And it's just, like, makes you sort of just, like, rethink.
No better way to step in episode 13 than by having the creative Ishka on the show. His unbridled childhood growing up in the iconic town of Byron Bay inspired him for a life of travel and adventures. From early day travels with his mum to then multiple country solo expeditions, he was always following his heart and the call to adventure. To navigate it, he used the inner guide of what he didn't want more than what he did as evidence for answers. He went back to school later in life to study film and combined his first assignment with one of his first long-form surf trips with a hometown mate, which ended up growing into producing some of the best surf films of the decade. Here is how one man's story of following his heart turned into gifts for the world. I'll be sharing my reflections after the podcast, but until then, sit back and enjoy the journey of Ishka. Ishka, thanks for coming on.
Cheers, Taylor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Let's take it back to the beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Byron Bay, quite a well-known little town on the east coast of Australia. Spent pretty much the majority of my life there. Moved away a couple of times after finishing high school and sort of found myself ending up back there. But sort of moved down to Tasmania in the last couple of years with the family.
Wow. Did you grow up with many or any brothers and sisters?
Growing up I had one younger sister. She's 3 years younger than me. And then later in life, so my parents separated when I was about 6. Dad remarried and he had another son. So I would have been in my 20s. So I've got quite a younger brother as well. But yeah, he wasn't sort of around through those childhood years.
And, painting the picture, what's it like growing up in Byron Bay? I mean, this has to be one of the most iconic towns in the whole of Australia.
Yeah, it was great. It was, I couldn't have asked for like a better place to grow up. Like it's very different now in a lot of ways, and a lot of people can sort of, poo-poo it a bit, I guess, for, being a bit superficial now, or just a bit crazy. Like it's just sort of imploding almost. Like there's just so much, so many people and like very little infrastructure and stuff. But as a kid, it was like a sleepy little beach town where you knew every person walking down the street. And as a kid, you'd just be on your pushy all weekend, riding down to the beach, crashing on friends' couches. Like you just sort of were left to sort of roam on the weekends, and like just pretty free range. Basically lived at the beach and on our bikes. And it was a really special childhood for sure.
Out of curiosity, how did your parents end up there? Do you know that story?
Yeah, so my parents are both originally from Melbourne. They didn't know each other in Melbourne. They met in the Northern Rivers, but basically my mum was sort of she was like in that environmentalist movement. She was hitched up to the Daintree and was sort of protesting up there, sort of just moving around a lot, and ended up sort of based in Byron. My dad was actually, he was pretty heavily into drugs in Melbourne, to the point where he sort of had a realization that if he stayed there, he may not live a whole lot longer. Like he was pretty deep in that. So he made the call to sort of just move, to surround himself with different people. Incidentally it was Byron Bay that he moved to, and my parents, met in Byron Bay, which they're both sort of in that general area to this day, yeah.
Wow, because, I mean, arguably one would say Byron would have to have some of the most beautiful weather in Australia as well, and just picturing that, free range, riding around, catching up with friends, sleeping on couches. I mean, did you go to school much? Was that a part of your program? How was that?
Yeah, for sure. In my early childhood, I actually went to the Steiner school for like my primary years, and then for high school, I went to Byron High. But yeah, I was always, I was a very sort of shy, sort of well-behaved kid. I wasn't one to like really skip school and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think the Steiner, looking back now at the time, obviously when you're a young kid, you don't really realize, but I think that was a great way to start out, I guess, education in early years. I think it really nurtures children and feels like the teachers really care. Not that they don't in other schools, but there was something something special looking back on it now that really encouraged children to explore their interests, and it was just a very supportive environment, and I think it was just a really nice way to start school. And then so following that, I sort of chose to go to Byron High, basically just because some of my close friends were going there as well. And then I mean, looking back, Byron High, I don't know if every school is sort of similar through those like teenage years, but it was it's definitely like could get a little, I don't know, there was a lot going on. Like it could definitely get a little bit out of hand. Like I don't know if it's just a teenager thing, but it was I guess eye-opening at the time, and sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but high school was an interesting one. I did enjoy it, but I was sort of one of those kids that was very reserved and would just like observe and, I don't know, just sort of like take in everything that was going around me, and just sort of had like tight little sort of close group of friends, and and then outside of school, like I was saying, just be at the beach pretty much.
Wow. Just out of curiosity, what year was this? What was going on?
So I started high school 2000, so 2000 2005 were my high school years, and like I was saying, Byron was still quite a sleepy town. Maybe that had something to do with that sort of teenage angst. I don't know if you would call it that, but like maybe there wasn't a lot other. If you weren't at the beach or something, it was sort of like, oh, what can we do? What can we get up to? So there was a fair bit of mischief for sure, like outside of school in particular. But I don't know if that's just maybe a small town thing when you're just looking for something to do, but
And there was a big hardcore scene in Byron around
that
time,
eh? Yeah, that was huge. That sort of all kicked off. I would have been like 11 or probably like 12 or something when that sort of started gaining traction, and sort of, there was some bands out of Byron that was sort of doing well, and the whole scene sort of kicked off. That was definitely like, they had shows at the youth centre, and that was definitely something where brought like a lot of the underage kids somewhere that felt like some sort of a venue or something, where, a lot of the other venues like pubs and places that are, 18 and older. So, I think it definitely, for some people, I think it was a really good thing. People could sort of channel maybe what things that were going on in their lives into this room. And I don't know if you've been to a hardcore show, but they can get pretty wild. So it's like probably a good way for some people to maybe get, a bit of their anger out in like a somewhat healthy way rather than elsewhere. But I feel like it also had another side to it that maybe wasn't so healthy, but I sort of experienced it and was sort of like, whoa, this is pretty wild.
Absolutely. I mean, it does sound like it has such a big influence on the town, and surroundings. I mean, Byron is just such an incredible space, and it, as you know, it just invites so many different people from all walks of life into it. And so, how was it like also being surrounded by a lot of tourists, a lot of travelers, a lot of different energies?
Yeah, I think it was great. Like, I think, because unless you travel, it's sort of, or until you travel, it can be really easy, that feeling of like, especially I feel like in a small town where there's that thing where it's like you're in a bubble and it's like you sort of forget that there's this whole world out there, and like these little things in your life seem so important, and so like that's the whole world. And I think having people sort of come in, like transient people, you sort of get a bit of a glimpse of like what's going on outside of that bubble, and that there is another world, and that maybe some of the things you think matter a lot don't actually really matter that much. So I think that was a really good, I feel like some small towns don't get that, and I think we were lucky to sort of have these glimpses into these other worlds and meet people from different cultures and different backgrounds. So I think that was quite special for a small town to be able to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said, not many small towns get that opportunity at all, but it's just to have that dichotomy in one place, and also the geographical beauty and mysticism that Byron holds as well. It's like, it is quite a special place.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no surprise that so many people want to live there or are drawn to that. It's incredibly beautiful, and there is something special about it for sure.
Absolutely. Did you, as you're saying, going to the beach a lot and things like that, did you get into surfing? Were you kind of hanging out? Like, what was that a part of your program?
Yeah. Grew up bodyboarding. Probably until I was like 25, I was bodyboarding. Just my like close group of friends. Like that was sort of what we did. Obviously, some of our friends are stand-up surfers as well. But the beach was all about getting in the water and going surfing, and going like exploring, trying to find waves, and that was a huge part of my life, and almost like like a third parent, like just being able to spend that amount of time in the ocean. Very, very sort of important part of my life, the ocean and surfing.
I mean, surfing is incredible in that way that it really opens up so many doors and possibilities to the world. And I can imagine, like, as a young man getting a bike and having that sense of freedom, and then having that combination of riding around town, chasing waves, looking for surf. Like, wow, what an experience.
Yeah, it was really cool. Like, as with Byron, it's like small enough where you can ride to the other end of town looking for waves, but it's big enough that that's like on a bike. It's a bit of a mission. So you sort of like, gear up for it, and it's cool. Yeah,
amazing. And so you've gone through high school. Then what happened next?
Straight out of high school, I did a 6-month trip. Sort of, there was back in the day of travel agents where you go and have a chat with them, and they book you a round world ticket, and you get so many stops. And so booked a round world ticket, spent 6 months, sort of South America, Central America, Europe, Southeast Asia, and landed back home. And then, trying to think, so long ago now, just sort of worked, when I was home, I'd like work hospitality or basically anything I could really get my hands on, and would live on not much, just to like save up again to basically go traveling again. Like, I fully got the bug for traveling. And I mean, I feel like I actually sort of already had it from my childhood. Like, so my parents separated when I was about 6, and then mum and dad were always really into traveling, and mum in particular she couldn't afford to take both me and my sister a lot of the times, like on an overseas trip. So we'd sort of alternate where she'd take me or my sister on these trips overseas, and she was right into her photography as well. So she'd be like, just taking people's portraits and like mostly like Southeast Asia. And so I spent quite a bit of time traveling with her, like in school holidays and stuff. And I feel like that probably gave me the itch to travel when I'd finished school. And then that sort of has never really stopped.
Wow. And how old were you when you first went overseas?
I mean, I learnt to walk in Thailand, so yeah, it's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you remember the first real significant trip that stands out in your mind, the overseas trip you did with your mum?
Yeah, I feel like I think it was just going to Bali. I don't know how old I would have been, but I would have been fairly young. But I just remember, like, that feeling when you arrive, like, into a sort of a Southeast Asian country and you get off the plane and, like, that humidity just, like, hits you in the face, and there's all the smells and, like, the sounds. And, like, as a kid, it's just like, whoa, like, this is pretty wild. Like, this is so different from anything, that I'd ever experienced. And, like, even, like, walking through the airport, and there's all the counters and everyone's sort of like yelling at you because they want you to like rent their car and like all this stuff. Like, just as a kid, I was just like, wow, like what is going on? And yeah, I have this distinct memory of just like walking through the airport and just like that contrast from like getting off the plane to like walking through the airport and walking outside. For the first time, it's just like, wow, there really is like a whole nother world out here.
I mean, the old airport of Bali there was pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so then, when in the last little bit of high school there, did you always have it in your mind? You're like, I'm hitting the road as soon as this is done. I'm working, saving up, and I'm out of here on this quest.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty good idea. I knew I didn't want to go, like, I was sort of like, I was okay at school. I definitely wasn't like an A grade student, but it wasn't, at that point in my life, I wasn't really interested in learning what was being taught at school, I guess. Like, I didn't have like sort of academic ambition at that stage in my life, or I guess I didn't really know even what I wanted to do. Like, I didn't want to just go and study for the sake of studying, because that's sort of what was expected. Not that my parents expected that at all. If anything, they would have encouraged me to do the traveling over studying. But I guess it was a little bit of a lack of knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And I probably wasn't even really thinking about a career or anything at that stage. It was just like, wow, school's about to be done and I can do whatever I want for the first time in my life. You know what I mean? There definitely would have been a thought in the sort of later years of school that that's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
I mean, that first trip, it sounded like you covered a lot of ground and touched in on a lot of different cultures.
Yeah, it was really, really great, that trip. And then, like, I think I did another trip similar, like another 6-month trip, similar, like 2 years after that, because I was just like, I have to do that again. But it was, took the bodyboard. It was sort of, most places I went was sort of loosely guided by if there was a wave, or and then sort of try to get some waves and then go inland, do some hiking, or I just sort of, but it wasn't, it was sort of like I had these destinations, but other than that, like, nothing was planned. It was just like, get off the plane and then just sort of see what happens, pretty much. I think it was a great way to sort of experience, just the way other people live. And like I was, sort of saying earlier, like just being able to experience different cultures and realize that your little bubble at home isn't the whole world. And like, yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in these little details in life. And it was just like a great way, I felt, to sort of just be like, yeah, just leave all that sort of stuff behind and just meet people and just like, I think it was a great learning experience, really. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's such a young age too to have it been put into a completely different perspective. It just kind of opens up the whole world. Were you, in these early trips, were you documenting these in any way?
I would have had just like a little stills camera, probably on a hard drive buried somewhere. Because I do remember that, yeah, there was some photos from like Machu Picchu and a few of these places. One day I'll have to dig them up, but yeah, but it was very much like a hobby at that point in my life.
Mm-hmm. Were you in the 2 years, for example, in between trips? Were you also doing the hospitality work then too?
I think actually after the first trip I moved to Newcastle for a year, and I was working as a geotechnician, basically just like doing soil testing for, like, my friend's dad owned the business that I knew in Newcastle, so I just sort of like fell into that. So I did that for a year, and yeah, saved up all like money down there, and then yeah, basically just hit the road again.
How was it moving out of Byron for the first time?
I really enjoyed it. I like Newcastle. I've got some really close friends there still. Yeah, I did really enjoy it. I guess I don't know why. I guess nowhere I'd moved to gave me that feeling of home, though. Like, I lived in Melbourne for a year as well, a bit later on in life, which I loved as well. But sort of discovered, which I probably already knew, that I wasn't really like a city person. Like, I love visiting cities, but I think after a while I sort of just need a bit of breathing room. Newcastle was a bit less of that sort of city vibe, but I feel like still for me it was maybe just a bit much going on, and then sort of Byron always had that nice sort of feeling where you could sort of just slow down and like take a breath. So I just sort of found myself ending up, yeah, back in Byron.
Beautiful. And in relation to the first trip to the second trip, did you notice a difference within yourself? Did you notice a difference of the approach and style of way you were traveling?
To be honest, it was a pretty long time ago now. I can't remember anything sort of solid. Like, I feel like it was pretty similar. Like, I was still just, yeah, on a high from that first trip, and was like, I just want to like keep this thing going. But yeah, I can't remember anything in particular. Yeah, about if there was a sort of major shift from one trip to the next.
That's beautiful though. Like, it's, because it is one of those more challenging parts where it's like, and you travel and then you come back and everything's so familiar, but you still have that calling to want to go again. To make it happen, it can be a lot harder than what people realize. So it's amazing to kind of keep that fire burning. Yeah,
no, it definitely hasn't stopped. I mean, a bit now with the family, I'm much more happy just to be at home and like be with the family. But yeah, prior to having a family, there was always that like, wow, there's so many amazing places out there that haven't seen, like all these amazing cultures, and like, yeah, I feel like it's almost like we were talking about earlier, like that first experience of going to Bali with my mum, and it's just like this, like, this massive culture shock. I guess part of it is like chasing that sort of feeling, of just like being thrown in somewhere where you're just so out of place, and like your whole world is like flipped upside down, and like just, I don't know, something about it. It's exciting and it's refreshing.
Absolutely. And so So you come back from the second trip, and you've landed back in Byron. Is that correct?
Yeah, from the second trip, I would have been back in Byron for a little while, and then I think that's when I went down to Melbourne after. Maybe a year or two, moved down to Melbourne for a year, and then, yeah, just worked in hospitality. It was a bit of a kitchen hand, making coffees and stuff. And then I think I saved and did maybe like a 6-week trip to India with a close friend of mine. Just packed like carry-on luggage, and yeah, just sort of similar thing. Just no sort of real aim or goal, but just landed in India and like, yeah, had a great time.
Amazing. Yeah, India's beautiful. That's great. So then, when you're moving around, you're traveling and also experiencing different parts of Australia. As you said earlier, like you weren't as career focused or, heading in that particular direction. Was there ideas of what you thought the future might look like or what you might do long term for work or anything like that?
I feel like through most of my 20s, I didn't really know. Because I started getting into photography more. It was always a hobby, but like I really enjoyed it. And that sort of naturally developed into video, which I enjoyed even more. But I think, to be honest, I think one of the main driving forces, rather than like being aware of what I did want to do, was that I knew what I didn't want to do. And I didn't want to clock on 9 to 5 in an office and have like just a like repetitive sort of Monday to Friday. Like I knew I didn't want that, and I knew that I didn't really care if I had much money. Like if I could travel and like sort of keep having these experiences, like it didn't need a lot of money to do that. And I feel like those two things, it wasn't so much I want to make, videography or filmmaking like a career. It was just like that was something I loved doing. And then surfing was something else I loved doing. Traveling was something I equally loved doing. And I think just knowing what I didn't want to do allowed those things to sort of come together in a way that, yeah, sort of allowed me to make a living off those things, essentially traveling, surfing, filmmaking.
Wow, that's so beautiful, because it's so easy to think like, oh, if I just focus on what I want to do, or then that'll give me the answers. But really, like anchoring in knowing what you don't want, then it naturally opened up the time and allowed you to do what you did want to do.
Yeah, like it was, yeah, just continuing doing the things that I loved, I guess, but not doing it for the sake of like trying to make money. Like it took a long time to like actually make any money out of that, like it was definitely subsidized by like, just working in hospitality and stuff, which was, that's fun. And then you'd sort of do these little trips where, it'd start out as, a brand might pay for your plane ticket somewhere. And so you don't make any money, but you're like, cool, I get to go to this place and like, it's fun and get to make a little, 3-minute surf edit or whatever it is. So yeah, just taking those opportunities and then just naturally evolving over time. Yeah.
Do you remember that first moment where there was that like payment in a way of like a plane ticket or something?
Yeah, what would it have been? I'm trying to think, because I think the first little surf edit that I ever made, or at least that got like released online, was with Torren in Mexico. But I was in Mexico by myself, and he was just coincidentally traveling through with a friend, and I just filmed a bit and released it. So I was sort of already there. That was like the first short film, or little surf clip that we ever did. And then after that, I think he was sponsored by Fens at the time. And then I think they it was probably like, it would have been to Bali or like Sumatra or something with them. And they probably would have, you know, given me some like boardies and some shirts or something. You know?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And then, so, I mean, it's just putting it all together is just so beautiful. I'm just picturing, you know, the way you're traveling, you know, you're really anchoring in your values. You're creating time for be able to do what you want to do and what fills your cup. And now, like, it's starting to evolve where you're taking this passion, and then you're starting to see the dots link up and form these connections. Was there a moment where you actually said, I'm going to step onto this path fully, or it just naturally ran its course?
Yeah, I think so. Once Torren and I had made that, like, we were pretty much like joined at the hip from then on, as far as like making films together. And I think I just got more and more excited by it, and sort of probably would have seen that there was some sort of an opportunity to maybe not make a living, but like do it, make a little bit of money, have a good time, and like sort of see where that would lead. And I guess it got to the point where I wanted to sort of learn more about filmmaking, and I decided to do a course at TAFE. So I did film at TAFE for a couple of years, and yeah, that was definitely, I think, a turning point. It was like great just being surrounded by other people that were sort of in a similar, I guess, mindset of like being really passionate about filmmaking and wanting to learn. And yeah, I feel like that was the first time, like, I never really had that feeling when I was at school, where I was like just craving like any bit of information that the teachers had, and was just like asking questions like all the time, and was just so interested in everything about filmmaking. And at that point, I was sort of starting to do these slightly longer trips, and they were great. Like, I had a 3-month trip planned before I enrolled to like go around Australia with Torren, and I sort of let them know. I was like, hey, is that going to be a problem? Like, I really want to do this course, but I've got this opportunity that's, you know. And they were like, yeah, of course, like, you know, we're not going to like prevent opportunities of like, there's a whole reason you know what you're trying to get out of it. And they're like, we'll just take that your finished project and we'll assess it, and we'll look at the units and be like, yeah, cool, he's covered this unit, and this unit through this external project. And then, you know, the things that weren't covered, I sort of would do in the class afterwards. But they were great. I had really good teachers, and it's just like, from what, I haven't studied film at university, but from what I've heard, the TAFE course is much more hands-on. University goes a lot more in depth into like the history of filmmaking, and there's a lot more sort of on that side of things. But yeah, TAFE was great. It's just, you just get thrown in and start making little films, and it's very hands-on. Yeah, I loved it. And then after that, I feel like it also gave me a little bit, like, a lot more confidence, I guess, in myself, that like, oh yeah, I can do this. And I guess also helped a lot in sort of how to tell a story more so. Like, up until that point, it was always just essentially just surfing cut with music, and you'd like, you know, try time like the beat to like, you know, an air, or like, you know, that was basically the extent of it. But yeah, I think I learnt a lot about how to tell a story. Yeah, so I got a lot out of that course, and after that, I think was when the trajectory sort of changed.
Wow, I mean, what a beautiful compliment to be able to, you know, say, oh, I want to further educate myself and dive right into this. But then the timing of that first pivotal trip, and then being able to, because cut your teeth on the road, like, you're learning it all while you're doing it, but then you then can bring it back and then have somebody overview it and see how it is, and then whatever when it comes to criteria, but still then somebody be there to then dive even deeper into the work that you've already done.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a very unique sort of circumstance, and it was so cool that they like just rolled with it. Yeah, it was really cool, and to have them provide feedback, on the film, and I think the same thing happened the following year. I did another trip that they sort of managed to weave into the curriculum, and yeah, it was cool, really cool.
And in that course, out of curiosity, did they teach you the editing style and how to capture and then put it all together?
Yeah, it's sort of, it's definitely sort of a start to finish process. Obviously, it's like most people that study film will end up going in a sort of like specializing in a certain area. So I guess the course it's a bit more broad of like, so coming up with an idea, writing a script or treatment if it was a documentary, and then you're basically having like just getting all the pre-production side of things, so before you even go and shoot anything. So then when you go and shoot something like in that sort of school environment, you'd always have everyone would have their own project, and then the other students would basically be your crew. So there'd be someone on sound and all this. So you'd sort of be the director, and just sort of like, it'd be like your little baby, and then then everyone would go and edit their own films, and it was cool. But I mean, I wouldn't say so much as like a style or anything, but just like, I guess the foundation and the sort of the principles of filmmaking, and like just the sort of hands-on skills that are required, and yeah.
Wow. And so on that trip around Oz, how was it then, having all the gear and then having to set up and then get the shots and stuff? Were you still able to fully submerge yourself in the trip and the experience itself, or was it now a different way of thinking because of how you want to capture it?
For the most part, I feel like I could like drop into the experience. Like I was saying, I think with earlier before we started the chat, it was just having the time. Like having 3 months is a lot of time. So you're not shooting every single moment. You're sort of picking and choosing. And I think particularly in the earlier films, it was easier just to like really feel a part of it. And then I guess as it's progressed, I've gotten more, I guess, particular with like what I'm trying to capture, or a story that we're trying to tell, and like that's sort of maybe more in the back of my mind now. Back then I'd say not so much, but now I'm definitely, it's definitely like this balance of like, you want to drop into the experience, but then you don't want to miss out on like a really sort of critical moment that would really help tell the story. And it can be sort of frustrating at times. You're like, I just want to like sit back and enjoy this, but I know I should go get the camera and set up and like film it. So there's definitely a lot of that, for sure. And like particularly in the projects, I guess, where a lot of the films, it's just Torren or someone else or a bunch of people that are sort of the cast. But then in this Tasmanian film that we just did, it's like obviously I'm also in the film, so that adds sort of another layer of trying to like just another element where you're trying to enjoy the experience, but like, okay, I got to film this, I got to like make sure that we're both in the frame, and like try capture capture these authentic conversations between us, where you just might go leave the camera on a tripod for like a couple of hours, so that you just like forget that it's there and actually have like a natural conversation rather than something that's like for the camera. Yeah, it's an interesting balance, but yeah, and that balance of like being in the experience and also capturing it is definitely something that, yeah, can be a bit of a juggle sometimes.
And in those early days, obviously, like you're getting into it, you're studying at the same time, and you said that you and Torren would join at the hip. Did Torren have much experience being filmed and also creating film as well, or were you kind of both really going through that journey from the start together?
Yeah, pretty much from the start together. He'd been in some other surf films, like when he was sponsored by Fens, they had like an in-house guy who would make most of their films, but they were, yeah, very different to what we were doing, and I think we both sort of had similar ideas and how we wanted to sort of do these films and tell more of a story. Yeah, and like we just got along really well, and like to this day, like we just literally never had like an argument. And you just like one of those friends and people that you work with that you just don't have to like verbally communicate a lot of things. Like you're just sort of on the same page, and they just sort of happen naturally, and you just know that they're thinking the same thing. And yeah, it's been a very special sort of relationship to have for such a long time and still be more or less, doing all this stuff together.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, what do they say? That traveling will make or break a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's powerful to have that non-verbal communication and understanding of, because traveling is just, it's so beautiful, but I mean, it's, there's a lot going on every single moment. So
yeah.
So that's very powerful that
yeah.
both come together, and also too, like that within the similar timing and getting to develop together and grow and both, contribute in such a powerful way to, as I said earlier, like the niche of what you guys have created.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very special, and yeah, we're very aware that it's a very unique sort of privileged situation to like have each other, and like, yeah, it's really cool.
Beautiful. So the round Oz trip, and then you said you did another trip. Then was there a moment there where it was like you were both looking at each other, or you really got the signals and signs of like, right, this is we're on track here. This is something.
Yeah, so I think it's probably when Torren ended up getting on board with Need Essentials. They were like still in their infancy, like a very new brand. I think it was that trip around Australia that we did, and they threw in like $1,000 towards fuel or something in that trip. That was like our very first sort of time we connected with them, and after that film, like as Need Essentials sort of grew enough where they had a bit of a kitty to like put into films and have like surfers that represent the company and stuff, they got Torren on board, so he was sponsored by them, and then they basically from then on have funded pretty much every single film that we've made. And yeah, after a little while, they sort of got to a point where they were big enough where they could support me financially. It started off sort of just film to film, and then until it got to a point where I was basically able to just rely on that income from them alone, and we got to, like, we both did, and they would also fund these films, because they don't do like traditional advertising, I guess. So their entire sort of marketing budget they just put into producing these films, and they're obviously not ads, like they're films that we are very like proud of and connected to, and like, but I guess for Need Essentials, they sort of saw the value in that, and also very keen filmmakers, like have background in storytelling, and just wanted to be able, like, we're just stoked to be able to be a part of that altogether. So yeah, it sort of just sort of happened, but yeah, I don't know if there was like a moment in time where I was like, oh, this is it, but it just sort of slowly like kept, yeah, sort of progressing that way until I was like, wow, this is pretty wild.
Wow, that's beautiful. And
yeah.
so then it must be like, how does a trip get formed? Like, how does it, like, from that kind of incubation phase, like how does the seed get planted for then to eventuate to then people being able to view these beautiful experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it generally starts from just like a super simple idea, from like, at least for the more like adventure driven ones, it's generally comes from Torren, where he's like, hey, what do you think about jumping on a motorbike and going around New Zealand? And it's just sort of as simple as that. And then yeah, we're just like, yeah, great, that sounds amazing. And then from there, it's like, you know, there's some logistics to sort of figure out, like how are we gonna actually get these motorbikes, what's, you know, all the you know, we're gonna have to obviously pack light and what gear and everything we're gonna take. But yeah, for the most part, particularly in the earlier films, it was all pretty like, it just came together pretty easily. Like, we were more than happy, you know, to sleep in a tent and like just sort of just make do with whatever we were, you know, had the opportunity to get our hands on. And yeah, now I feel like the films have evolved a bit more and there's a little bit more to it. Like, if we're trying to speak to different people, and we've got like certain people in mind that we'd love to have, you know, tell a story, and so trying to connect with them. Like, there's the guys at Need Essentials are like being great at like reaching out to people that would be hard to basically, like, you know, you sort of need a bit of an in to even get to talk to them about an idea. So like, and then, yeah, obviously, like I was saying earlier before we started, yeah, there's the families. So there's like, how's a trip and a film going to work with, you know, our partners and kids at home? Like, we don't want to go away for 3 months anymore. So how can we sort of shift how we look at this and still make a film that we're really proud of and that has meaning and still relatable and everything? So yeah, so more so now it's sort of there's a bit more to figure out leading up to actually starting the trip, and then yeah, and I feel like for the most part, once we've on the trip, it's just sort of, we get into a rhythm pretty easy where we, like I was saying, without even having to sort of communicate verbally, we sort of know what we need to be trying to capture. We know what we're trying to sort of achieve loosely. And yeah, just sort of like, it just sort of happens and don't really have to overthink it too much. Just sort of capturing what happens, and then yeah, sort of the post-production side of things is probably the longest, well, is definitely the longest part, where obviously you have an immense amount of footage and just sorting it out and having it organized so you can like see it in a coherent way, and like is like a lot of time, like just organization. And then you're trying to basically, obviously there's the obvious story that's in front of you of like, oh, okay, two guys sailing kayaks around Tasmania, but then it's like, okay, well, we've got to give this some sort of a structure. We want to give it a bit more depth. We also really, particularly here, we wanted to give something back to Tasmania. We didn't want it to be as much of a like, oh, we're going to go like circumnavigate and like we're so fucking cool because like we sailed around Tasmania. Like we wanted it to be more about the place and the people, and because we just moved here, we didn't want to try and tell that story because it wasn't really our place to do that. So yeah, we thought it would be really important and be like a huge privilege to get some key sort of people that are deeply connected with Tasmania, have spent their lives here and really care about this place, and be able to talk with them and sort of let them tell that story. And yeah, which is we did like the 4 people that we managed to talk to were like the only 4 people we really had in mind, and luckily like they were all more than happy to have a chat with us, and were all just like spoke so beautifully, and like yeah, it was so special and such a privilege to be able to have them sort of tell the story.
I mean, the way it comes across in that film is just stunning, and it's very honourable to have that awareness and consciousness to let other people, you particularly being new to a place, but then really having the intention of locals and historians tell that story of the place that you feel so fortunate to be, and also celebrate and showcase.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was yeah, it was cool. It's like by far like the film to me that I feel like has the most sort of depth to it, and that I'm sort of I guess the proudest of, in a way. I'm like yeah, like it was there was times throughout making it that were really stressful and challenging. And it's funny, the actual trip itself was sort of like the easy part. It was like everything else that was hard. But yeah, to sort of be able to have that finished and like being able to share it, yeah, it's definitely a very special film to me, that one.
That's beautiful. And obviously, like, you know, you're a well-traveled man. It's, you know, and people often ask, you know, where's your favorite place? What's your favorite place you've been to? And it's, you know, it's really not a question that one can answer, I don't think, but it's, but if you look back at your adventures and the storytelling and all that you've experienced, do you recognize yourself in those different chapters and those different experiences in different ways? Like when you look back at it, or you see it, or you think about it, like what comes to you?
Yeah, look, I think in the beginning it was, I don't want to speak for Torren, but I'm guessing it was similar for him, that the trips probably started more from a place of like, where has really good waves, and you sort of, like a lot of surfers, that's like all you're really thinking about is like, I want to go to this place because it's got an incredible wave. You go there, like you surf, you like generally staying like right in front of the wave, and then you sort of like leave. And I think, yeah, what's changed a lot from that approach now is like, now it's sort of more about the people and the place, and then the wave is sort of like a bonus almost. So yeah, like just being able to make those connections with people, and like, you know, a lot of the places that we've traveled to are places that don't necessarily have a lot of money, and then like you meet these people that literally have what they've got on their back, and they invite you for dinner and like cook you a meal and like give you a gift, and you're just like, wow, like it's like incredible, like just the people that have nothing, like still like have something to give, and it's just like makes you sort of just like rethink like a lot of things. So yeah, that's, I'd say the people is sort of like a big one, and like just getting to like experience these different cultures and ways of life and everything. It's been, yes, so special.
Wow, that's beautiful. Beautiful. And so obviously, you know, you and Tom and Torren are just working together and out in the world creating these beautiful experiences for yourself and others. You were the first to have a family out of the both of you, correct? And
Yeah.
how long did you have a family before then, Torren, and how was that dynamic?
Yeah, so my eldest is 3.5 years older than Torren's child, Naya, his daughter, who's also my second son, and Torren's daughter were born a week apart. So, yeah, at first it was just my son, Wyler, for the first, 3 and a bit years. And I think that was, like, I was sort of trying to navigate that at the time, trying to find out sort of how it all worked with, like, having a family and, like, just sort of figuring it all out. But I remember we did, it was when Torren, the strongest memory I have of that sort of time frame was Torren and his partner Ayana were sailing through Southeast Asia. We ended up making the film Calypti from it. And I did a 6-week stint on the boat filming. And that was when my son was quite young. And I sort of, after that I was like, no, that was too long. Like that wasn't, I didn't, like, I enjoyed the experience of being on the boat, but that dynamic had definitely changed. I was like, I don't want to do that again. I would sort of go back and forth to the boat for sort of shorter periods of time. And then, sort of that trip was more about Torren and Ayana. And I sort of like, obviously with the child, just sort of took a step back from that and just was more going in to sort of capture it and then put it together at the end. And we also had a handful of other people that would go for a few weeks or month at a time and film as well. So I guess it was the first big project where I felt like I guess handed a big sort of portion of it over to other people, which was something I guess I wasn't used to. But it worked really well. I love that film. It has a special place for me as well. And the fact that we could sort of see that could work, where you get other people to step in and film and do a great job and still put an authentic, beautiful film together at the end was cool. But that was sort of the only, I think, long form film we did while I had my son and Torren didn't have kids yet. And then the next long film after that was this one that we've just done, where we both had children.
Wow. And then going off the back of the Tassie trip, then what's recalibrated with both of you now, particularly both having families and intentions being different?
Yeah, I think we're still trying to navigate that a bit. We don't know what the next sort of long form film is going to be yet. We all sort of decided that we'd spend this year just focusing on some more sort of short form films. Still want them to have story and meaning and stuff, but these films that are going in excess of like an hour, they take a lot out of us. And so we just like this year, we're just going to like just rein it back a little bit, do some shorter form films where we can go away for like 2-3 weeks at a time. And it'll just be it'll probably be more surf heavy, but still with a story. But not like those sort of more like two friends going on an adventure style. I'll have a bit of a different spin on it. And then, I think after this year and we've done that, we'll sort of see where we're at and how we're feeling with everything, and just sort of, figure it out how we want to sort of move forward with the next film. And also, I'm sure by then Torren will have another sort of random crazy idea in his head that he mentions, and then we'll just sort of dive into it.
That's amazing. I mean, it's like looking at the timeline and, you know, from your own personal exploration around the world, and then, as I said, like allowing the most important thing, which is like time to connect with what you love and how it's blossomed, the connection of you and Torren. And then, I mean, you guys have been able to show the world through the experiences through your eyes, and showcase like the beauty of traveling, but the storytelling and friendship, you know, like it's been beautiful to witness and see that, and see that union come together in so many different forms. And now, as your own personal journeys develop and evolve, and how that then is showcased with the work that you guys offer for the world, it's really beautiful. And it's been amazing following and watching you guys evolve in that way, and showcasing to the world.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always, it is nice to hear, like, not so much like, I guess, praise or anything like that, but there are definitely times through the process where you're just like, oh, why am I even doing this? Like, there's like, you know, there's hard parts about it. And yeah, it is really nice, like, especially if we get to tour the film, like getting to share it in person with people and see people that, like, it has a genuine positive sort of effect on them. Or like someone will write to you and be like, you inspired me to like quit my job that I hated and like buy a van. And, you know, like, it's really special when you hear that like the films can actually have like a really positive impact on someone's life, like beyond anything that I ever would have sort of imagined. It's sort of really trippy to actually think about, but yeah, it's very I feel very honoured that, like, I'm able to be in this position and like do something that I love and I feel is meaningful, and also sometimes impacts other people's lives in a positive way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can absolutely confirm that it does and has, because it's, you know, as we were saying earlier, it's the way that you guys found your channel and niche down and as saying, like, showcase what you have. It's been very needed, I feel, within this space, because it and you can really tell how authentic it is to both of you, and it's just an extension of who you both are and how you both operate and show up in the world. And I think that has naturally caused a very powerful positive ripple effect on not only like the surf community, but the greater communities outside of that, because of the way that you capture the cultures and those experiences. And I think that it's always been very exciting, like waiting for the next, you know, edition and what's to come. And so, yeah, I can say from the outside, sharing with you and to the inside, it's been very powerful and it's made an incredible impact. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Ishka, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honour. Thank you to coming on and sharing your story. Here in the podcast, we now transition into the part of your medicine. So if you were to look back on your personal journey and your story, what do you feel has been one of your greatest teachings or teachers within this story?
Oh yeah, that's a big question and could be answered many different ways, but I feel like for me personally, and I never really feel comfortable like giving advice to people because everyone's lives are so different, you know, and I've like had a very privileged life, and like some people just don't have opportunities like I've had. Just, you know, just being born in this country is a huge, you know, privilege. But for me personally, I think I'd have to say it was, yeah, like I said earlier, I guess like pursuing the things that you love in life and not doing it for monetary reasons, but just doing it because you love it. And yeah, I have this strong feeling that if you do that, things just tend to fall into place. And if you do want to end up making a living off those things that you love, there's every chance that that can happen. But I think it's important, yeah, at least, you know, in those sort of early stages, not like going in with that mindset of like, how can I like make money off this, you know, like just sort of doing it because you love it. And then just like things happen that you could never predict or foresee in life. And yeah, I certainly never saw my life unfolding the way it has. And I'm very grateful that it did.
Beautiful. Incredible. Thank you so much, Ishka. I really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Taylor.
Wow, what a beautiful story. It was just incredible to reconnect with Ishka and put all the pieces of his life puzzle in order and see how it all mapped out. I mean, you know, when he was sharing about growing up in Byron Bay, it is honestly one of the most beautiful spaces in Australia. And I was fortunate to live there for a little while, and it just holds this essence and this pure magic because of the scenery, the transiency, the weather, this combination of everything all together. So I was just so fascinated to hear what it must have been like growing up there and spending your childhood there. You know, envisioning riding with the bodyboard under your arm with your buddies, chasing waves and then going down to the milk bar and, you know, grabbing a drink afterwards or getting fish and chips and doing all the things that, you know, an Australian kid does and just having that sense of freedom. I mean, and what a town to feel that freedom. It's quite instinctual there because of that transiency and because of the beauty, but to be connected to it in a way of growing up there and how that was. And it was really fascinating to hear how that Steiner early school experience shaped that creative flow and an opportunity to be able to learn in a different way, in a different style, which is quite funny how it then when Ishka was sharing about then going to the high school and the contrast of that experience. And I thought it was cool how he was saying that he just kind of sat back and observed and had his core group of mates, but was just kind of taking it all in. And really, really exciting to hear when, you know, somebody shares about their travel experiences, particularly so early, finishing high school, hitting the road, doing that style where you go to so many different countries and it's all linked up with one ticket and just going from culture to culture and landscape to landscape is just it's just that sounded like it just really explodes one open to possibilities and deeper understandings of what is actually, like Ishka said, important and what is really worth paying attention to, because it is, and especially small towns as well, it can easily be one of those experiences where you get lost in the unnecessary details. But to have the world at your fingertips and the opportunity and, as you said, the privilege to be able to embark on these adventures and these journeys is just so remarkable, because, you know, the way in which that grounds a human being and opens one's mind and one's heart, more importantly, is very, very profound. And to link that up with some time in Newcastle, time in Melbourne, connecting with cities and more metropolitan areas and reinforcing the love for nature and that groundedness that comes with that too is really important. I think it's very special when a person really has these segments of experience and understanding of what resonates with them on a deeper emotional, spiritual level and what really fills your cup, but also too, like the exploration in contrast. And And I really believe that it's, there's only certain lessons you can learn from staying in a place, and there's only certain lessons you can learn from leaving and exploring and leaving certain things behind. And it's nice when those places are also hold the dichotomy from what you originally know and believe to be one example. So I loved how there was so much emphasis also on value of what Ishka didn't want, and how that then created and allowed time for the things that he did love and connect with to blossom and ruminate in a very healthy and organic way. And I really resonated with that, and something that I deeply carry within that same philosophy of, knowing what we don't want is going to be more prevalent and true than sometimes knowing what we do want, because sometimes knowing what we do want can be quite fleeting, and it can change moment to moment or week or month to month. So really anchoring in that not knowing of what you don't want, I believe also paint more of a picture than anything else. So it was really cool to then hear how the further education in a subject matter that really resonated with Ishka, how it changed his whole understanding, philosophy, and approach to education. And it makes so much sense. I mean, there's actually so much joy in further education or studying something that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, and it's very much like you become that sponge and you're soaking up that information. And, as you said, asking those questions and wanting to go deeper. And it's, as I've learned later in life, it's incredibly enjoyable experience when it all aligns and you're genuinely interested. And I loved how that was also correlated with one of the first trips that around Australia and the videography journey, and how then using that as the data point and almost the assignment itself and the submission, and then you could analyze it in a healthy way and learn and grow from already lived experience, because there's just so much wealth and knowledge when it comes from just putting yourself out there and trying and learning on the job, as they say. Because it's one thing to learn in a classroom, it's a completely different thing to learn on the go as you go. So I really loved hearing that, and then just the evolution of that partnership, and as I said, that union was just so beautiful, because it really is hard to find somebody that you can travel so comfortably with. But then when it's not only a best friend, but it's also essentially a business partner, but it's also just a life companion, it's so special, because they certainly, particularly in that scenario, does not come around every day. And as I mentioned, to have it in the form that Ishka has it, and way to document it and then present and offer that to the world, has just been so beautiful. Because I mean, I'm a surfer myself, and also a person who loves traveling and exploring and connecting with other cultures. So when these movies and clips and edits and offers came out to the world, it was really that collective of all of that put together, and storytelling, and just living life. I think that was throughout the whole story. I just really resonated with Ishka and appreciated the way that he's connected to his story and the life that he's lived, and as he said, like, not ever really knowing the exact destination, but going along for the journey and appreciating it for what it is. And so I feel very grateful to have been able to sit with Ishka and hear that story and gain more insight to what it's like behind the camera, and what those trips entail on a deeper level. And I think that from what I listened to and heard, it's what is captured is not too far away from the authentic lived experience. And as I said, it's something that really comes through in his videography, in the way he captures the world around him and the life that he's been living and shares. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that story and friendship, and also the opportunity to learn and understand more. So yeah, very grateful. Thank you very much. So there you have it, how the knowing of what someone didn't want then led to the showing the world what they are missing. If you'd like to see more of Ishka's work, go to @Ishka Imagery. And if you'd like to understand more about the work I do in mental health, head to @Taylor_Jardine. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to rate it and share it with your friends. My name is Taylor Jardine, and this is Your Story, Your Medicine. Thank you for taking the time to listen.